Welcome to Growthcast, Insights for B2B Leaders. Today we have a very special guest where we're going to be discussing hostage negotiation tactics, but in sales. Today we have Sebastian. Nice to have you on the call today.
Hey Alex, how are you doing? Thanks for having me, man. Long time coming. We tried to book this like 3 times. It finally worked out.
Yeah, so we recorded my episode that was very well received, and now you're a guest on my one after multiple attempts of getting this in the diary. So glad to have you on here.
Yes, I mean, I hope I bring the same level of quality you brought to mine because the one you did with me, the feedback was overwhelmingly good about it. I think some people made money with that episode.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully with this one as well, my viewers will be very interested in these hostage negotiation tactics. If not, I'll definitely be implementing them in my sales process. So we'll get straight into that. How did you get to where you are today?
The long question that I always get. I'm refining my answer to that, so I'm gonna test a new version here right now.
Yeah.
I got certified in hostage negotiation at age 18 because I had a dream of having a career in diplomacy, right? When I was younger, I wanted to get into international politics. I thought that diplomacy was about, making world peace possible and having power and brokering deals and becoming an ambassador. That all sounded cool to me, very idealistic. However, there was one issue. I don't have a family in diplomacy, and that's pretty much a requirement. It's like a caste. It's a very closed system. The only other path there was having an exceptional career. So I had a big network in Italy, and somebody in my network, an entrepreneur, told me, "Listen, I know this guy, this professor in Rome. He helps people get into a program to become peacekeepers." And I go, "Peacekeeper for the United Nations?" And he goes, "Yes." And he goes, "Oh, perfect. I'll introduce you." I get the intro. The professor doesn't want to have anything to do with me because I'm 17. So I have to chase this guy down for 6 months until I finally get a yes, not because he wanted to say yes, but because I was extremely annoying and he was kind of testing out if I really wanted it. Now, I meet with these people. Turns out their peacekeeping training was done through an American institution, and they were having the first hostage negotiation program in Europe. And that's when I joined. Now, I wasn't qualified to join. I didn't meet any of the requirements. I entered just because I was one annoying piece of shit and I really wanted it. They were impressed by that and by the young age, so they let me in. And that's how then, going through university, I didn't want to go into politics anymore because I found out how that really works, how diplomacy is not what I thought it was. And I got into business. And as I got into business, then, you know, I had to learn sales, but I refused to learn sales for a while because I had this self-constructed image of as me as a shy guy, as an introvert. And I did everything in the book I could do to avoid sales until you get into business, you gotta. And as I did that, I also reconnected with the people that trained me in hostage negotiation. I got some other training from them that I'm still completing. And that's what brought everything together for me. I was like, because in those years, as I did my first years of business, I did close deals. It's not that I was avoiding selling, I avoided sales. And to me, when I talked to other people in sales, it didn't sound like I was selling because in my book, in my perception, I was having conversations with people and they would close themselves. They would close themselves. So I was like, I'm not a good salesperson. I told myself that for years. And then at some point, when I meet these people again, they start training me again. I start realizing, oh, fuck, I've been subconsciously applying these things to what I'm doing with prospects. So what happens if instead of doing subconsciously, I apply it consciously? And that's how I got where I'm now. I hope it answered. It was long as fuck. I'm sorry.
Sounds very interesting. So let's dive deep into the hostage negotiation. So I know your business, you implement the right offer and also sales strategies and how to sell. What's different about the hostage negotiation tactics versus the standard sales processes like MedPick, all of these processes that really work, but they only get you so far?
I will start by saying that I don't like down talking or trashing any other sales process because they do work, right?
Mhm.
Medics, Spin, Challenger, Sandler, all this stuff has a place. All of them have their upsides, and I won't say mine is superior in all aspects. I would say it's just applying these methods is superior in specific areas of the sales process. Meaning, I create this sales training called SWAT, and it's very heavy on the discovery phase. The discovery phase matters because that's when we earn the trust of a prospect. Now, there's two ways of doing this. There's many ways of doing discovery, but two of them are, one of them is a script, and you go heavy on the script. You walk them through your questions, and you close them, or you try to close them and you lose them. The difference in applying hostage negotiation techniques is that instead of having a script, you will have a framework where it guides you so that you don't lose the red thread that should guide the entire conversation, because you need to have control of the frame. But it also makes sure that you dive deeper into the pain point, because something that you learn when getting trained in hostage negotiation is that people suck at explaining what they're dealing with and at giving you the information that you want and need, unless you question them, probably. So questioning becomes a big part of the discovery phase, because you are not happy with the first thing they tell you they're dealing with. You try to go 2 or 3 layers deeper in order to understand what is it that's truly bugging them. You try to mirror their words when they bring up even in a B2B context, when they bring up any emotional association to their problem, so that they open up more to you and start trusting you more. Because the more somebody opens up emotionally, even if they're an executive, the more they will trust you. And the more they trust you, the more they will believe you are the right person to solve their problem. And that's pretty much it. Very heavy on the discovery phase, digging into the pain point, and also digging into discovering who are the stakeholders involved. Because in every negotiation and every sales transaction is a negotiation, there are three main parties involved. There is the decision maker, there is a trusted advisor, and there is a deal breaker. And if you fail at recognizing this, or if you fail at identifying what you need to convince the other two, you will lose the deal.
Sounds very interesting. So, walk me through the hostage negotiation framework you're using in sales.
Okay, I shared this on LinkedIn today, and for people watching, it's like Friday, the something of
Cool.
March. I think it's the 15th. It's, for example, how do many sales interactions start? You start talking about you start with small talk, right? You start talking about the weather, and I don't know if it's happened to you, and I've done it several times myself. When you start a sales call with that kind of small talk, you feel this, let's call it pressure, or you feel this awkwardness that the prospect is waiting for you to just get into it,
Yeah.
and you know you're doing it just to get into it, but at the same time you mentally have this pressure that we all know in sales, that you need to build rapport. So you
Yeah.
start asking generic shit, and that actually ruins the frame of the conversation right off the bat. One thing you can apply from hostage negotiation is something called labeling. Quick parenthesis. Labeling is, Chris Voss calls it a shortcut to intimacy, is when you validate somebody else's emotions by recognizing them. Now, how do you label somebody that jumps on a call with you? You let them jump on a call, you wait till the camera is on, you wait for them to say hello, and you try to gauge their emotional state. Now, you don't have to get it right. That's the beautiful thing. A label is something that you throw out, and then they respond to. And no matter if you get it right or wrong, the label will get them to open up. So what I do is, if you're in a sales call with me, you say hi to me and say hello. And instead of asking you, how are you today? Because your brain again will enter autopilot and will say, I'm doing great. How about you? I will tell you, Alex, hi. It seems like you're having a great day, or having a tough day. If I ask you that, you immediately will either correct me and tell me, no, no, my day was amazing. Today we closed a deal, blah, 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 blah. And now you have a first piece of information of context for your sales call. They just closed a deal. Or they will tell you, oh, yes, my day has been terrible. I'm dealing with this, this, and that, which means you get context into pain points. So labeling is like an immediate trick you deploy in the first seconds of a call, and it usually will get out of the other person an in-depth response about whatever it is they're dealing with, or in, ugly to say it, but in the best case scenario, if they are in a tough moment, that will get them to tell you about it. And usually there is a chance that that is relevant to your call or to the things you need to keep in mind during the call about their emotional state and about the things you need to know to close them.
Yeah, I really like that. I think it's similar. What I usually do is like a pattern interrupt. So, like you said, everyone hops on a call and it says, "How are you? How's your day?" Oh, the weather here in London is rainy as always. Ha ha ha. Same joke all the time, and then it's like oh, should we get into this now straight away? I don't do exactly what you do in terms of labeling. What I will do is usually comment something that I see visually about them, whether dressed nicely, nice suit, Sebastian, or the background, something like that, where they don't really hear often on a sales call from a sales guy. But gonna definitely start using that labeling aspect and see whether they'll start opening up with emotion.
You nailed it. You want to have a pattern interrupt. A label is a pattern interrupt. It's also a tool to get information, but it mostly is a way of engaging them differently because, prospects shop around. They get sold to all the time. And all of us, we get sold to so much that something you, something we want to avoid is sales resistance. Sales resistance is what you get on a cold call. The moment you're calling them and in their voice, you hear that they don't want to talk to you because they know what's coming. That is
Yeah,
sales resistance. A label at the start of a sales call brings down sales resistance and replaces it with rapport. But that's why what you do is also great because you give them something to break the ice with. Something like, okay, nice suit, nice background. It's good. It avoids that mental pattern. Okay, oh my god, I am in a sales call because people get defensive about sales calls because they know that at some point they're gonna have to reach into their pockets, and
yeah.
whether they have a problem that hurts a lot or not, at some point they're not going to want to reach into their pockets. And we're trying to reduce that feeling as much as possible.
I really like that. And then once you've labeled the individual, what's the next step? What's the framework from there?
Once you label them, depends on what they tell you, right? If they immediately go into telling you something wrong, something that's not going as they would like to, then you start questioning. Now, there is a chance that if somebody tells you, "Oh yes, we just had a big pitch and it didn't go well," and you ask them, "Why? What happened?" They will tell you, "Oh, it just didn't go well," and they will try to switch the topic, right? They will try to evade the problem. Now, first of all, that's a sign that there's something there, especially if you're selling something related to sales, like in my case. So if somebody tells me, "Okay, we had a big pitch and it went badly," and I'm selling sales training, I'm gonna be wanting to know what's that about. So if they go, "Oh, no, nothing, just not all these go through," instead of asking a question again because they'll resist that, you will go, "Not all these go through." That's called a mirror. A mirror is, in body language, mirroring is when you mimic their body language. Now, people are very attuned to that because it's been so popularized that you can sense when somebody overdoes it, and it tends not to work if you do it too much. In a sales call, it will not work if it's virtual, but a mirror or like a label, they always work because these are techniques that work. They are meant to work, like on the phone with somebody who's kidnapped someone. So if you mirror them, it means you repeat 1 to 3 of their last words or of something they say that mattered, and you do it with a curious tone, upwards inflection. So
Yeah,
I forgot what I say. It's like, "Oh, not all these go through,"
yeah,
and then you pause. Now, when you're applying these techniques, silence is a weapon because you know socially we have been conditioned from school, from society, from our parents to answer questions. You cannot go to school and teacher asks you something and you just shut up and cross your arms and stare at them. That's rude and will get you in trouble. That programming is still there from childhood. So if you drop out a label or you mirror, then you have to stay silent. And sometimes the silence can last an uncomfortable amount of seconds, but that uncomfortable feeling you have, they have it threefold because they are the ones who are getting questioned. So mirroring gets them, the brain interprets mirroring as, oh my God, this person didn't understand what I said. I need to help them understand. And they will give you more context. And they will go, oh, yes, our salespeople went in too early, like, or we had somebody else who came in and did something wrong with the prospect. Now you are going deeper into the pain points. That's one path the conversation can take after you label them. If not, if you're dealing with people maybe from Northern Europe, cold countries where they are very pragmatic, they will go from the label to, okay, let's get into it. Let's talk about the thing you had to sell me, the thing you want to talk about. Now, what you want to avoid here is them asking you questions. Now, it's natural at some point you will have to answer questions, but you want to avoid them asking, because as you know, whoever asks the questions is leading the interaction, which means it's dangerous, because then the sales call is going their way, and their way is never going to go into paying you. It's going to go into just talking. So after the label, if they're the pragmatic type that just want to get into it and they start asking you stuff, you reply with a question. Okay, yes, but why did you what made you come into this call to begin with? Another detail is, it's hard to do, but avoiding why as much as possible. Because I think Chris Voss had this example, is when you were a kid and you were drinking and then the glass slipped from your hand and it broke on the floor. What is the first thing your mother would tell you? Why did you do that? Like,
Yeah.
why is a question that, again, makes us lift up our guard. You want to ask why in a different way, so that they start going inwards and telling you and telling you. And if they don't tell you enough, you mirror them. If they tell you, let's say you're selling software, you are dealing with someone very technical, someone who's telling you, he's the CTO, he's telling you that you had these issues in building the infrastructure, and then he keeps going to his safety zone, which is tech, technicalities, features, product. Somebody like that, at some point, if they are having a problem in the company that you can solve, they will go, and that was very frustrating, because, and that's your cue. You want to mirror that one word. You go, frustrating. That's more of a concerned tone. You go, frustrating, silence. That will get them to talk again. And then that will get them to talk about what they found frustrating about that. What that does is that then maybe you will find out that it is frustrating because their CEO already doesn't understand the value of these solutions. And that mistake, that problem, means that it will be much harder to introduce this, to sell this to them. So now you have a picture of the dynamic between the person in front of you and the decision maker or the deal breaker. So you want to probe the prospect with questions. And that's why you don't use a script. You want to probe them until you find out several aspects of their pain points, which then are the things you will use in closing them, because you can refer back to them. Okay, but you don't like this, but you mentioned this about your CEO being a pain in the ass to you. Don't you want to fix that? It doesn't that jeopardize your role? Doesn't that put the company behind strategically? It gives you a lot of room to play. Of course, scripts have there is a point to them, especially if you're starting out. Like, you need something to rely on that's tangible, that you can just walk the person through. But slowly, somebody with experience like you could just play around with questioning the prospect until they reveal a lot of what you need to know. Damn, I
Yeah.
talk too much over there.
No, I really like that. By any chance, have you studied Jeremy Mine?
I follow Jeremy too. He's great.
Yeah.
Like, if you follow Jeremy Miner and Chris Voss, those guys have great approaches. I think they approach it more or less from the same way, because also what I do is based on psychology,
Yeah.
based on neuropsychology. All that stuff has a common ground, which is understanding human behavior.
Yeah.
And Jeremy is great, to be honest. Sorry, notification. Jeremy is great, to be honest. I At some point I hope I can be in the same room with that guy or take a course from him, because I think really mastered tonality. And tonality is something that is really, really hard to nail down in sales, especially when the going gets tough and you're in an important deal, in an important negotiation or transaction, it's very easy to just lose sight of how to control your tone. And that could determine everything.
I think the number one mistake I've seen salespeople make is they start talking too much. They
Yes.
start speed talking when they start getting asked questions and they start getting nervous. Instead of them controlling the conversation, they just switch it to someone else. Whereas with like what you're saying, what Jeremy is those pauses, having that awkward silence, it really does build the pain for them as well.
Yeah, it's like when you drop the price, biggest mistake you can name is you can say is name the price and start talking. Because then
Yeah.
it sounds like you're justifying it. You have to say it's 50,000, it's 50,000. The silence can last 1 minute and it's horrible, but you have to resist because the moment you start talking after the price, you lose that frame. There are so many analogies between sales and dating, and that's one of them. Frame matters. You cannot start proving yourself to the prospect because then they are qualifying you, whereas they came to your sales call so you could qualify them. And to your point, I was at an event, startup event, on Tuesday, and there was this dude. He was telling us, me and another girl, about his product. He was showing it. He had a physical product. He had it. He was explaining the safety features, how you use it. And there was this guy to the left. And he was just listening, you know? And then he started asking stuff. After he asked 3 to 4 questions, he takes a little step forward. Like the body language is also super interesting. He takes a little step forward and he tells the guy, well, I would like to introduce myself. I am an angel investor. And that's where I think, I'm witnessing this from
Yeah.
literally from the side where like one is there, one is here, and I'm watching this happen. And that's where I get into sales mode and I start observing it because I'm like, okay, something's about to happen here. And the guy shakes his hand, he says, oh, cool. And then he defaults to talking, like you mentioned. He started rambling 3 times faster about the product and this and this and that and the certifications we need to get and the investment we need and how much we will sell it to. The investor guy didn't ask any of that. And what's worse is that at some point, this lasted like 2.5 minutes. At some
Mhm.
point, you could see the investor opening his mouth, even trying to get a question in. The founder took the first sign and let him ask. The investor got his answer that lasted too long again. And then the guy just kept talking and talking. He was trying to get more questions in. And what happens is after less than 5 minutes, the investor goes, oh, well, was a pleasure to meet you. And he says, like, worst thing I could hear was, and good luck with your product. I was like, fuck. He just walked away like that. And like, I'm telling you, this guy was so focused on talking about his product features that he didn't even ask me, I had been there for like 10 minutes already listening to him, didn't ask me what I was doing until the investor walked away. And then, oh, and what do you do? And I explained what I do. And he goes, do you have any tips for me? And I tell him, talk less. You just had an investor in front of you and you lost the opportunity because you never gave him a chance to ask. You just overwhelmed him. The more you talk, the more skeptical he grew. And the moment he just couldn't take more skepticism, he walked away because there was no point in talking to you. And
Yeah.
it's such a shame because if that guy, if you're explaining a product, if you pitch your product on stage and somebody approaches you and introduces themselves as the person you need, it's because they are interested. But if you don't let them speak and you don't consider that they are human, you will default to that. You will default to product talking, to showing your pitch deck or showing the thing, and you will not get in this case the money.
I really like that. And that's a fair enough approach. I remember the ramblings, etc. It just kills deals. The key is silence and listening to what your prospect needs, not selling the features. So I'm not surprised that he went on to ramble in defensive mode because he thought this is my big break. It's an angel investor. I can get this product off the ground, and it just fucks everything up.
Is when you develop. I think that's the founder version of commission breath.
Yeah, I
You
was
know,
about to say commission break.
when you're super thirsty for the deal and you just turn people off. And that's what he did. It was painful, but at the same time, watching it happen as as a case study, it was wonderful because you could see the potential that was there, and then you saw it go down exactly for the reasons we're discussing. Somebody whose comfort zone when they get when they feel pressure is the product and the features. And all people with more experience in sales will have other comfort zones that all also maybe it's the personality.
Yeah,
They just start talking. They try to charm the prospect into buying instead of diagnosing them into buying.
yeah. And it's unfortunate because, like you mentioned, you can see this from the sidelines, but most people that don't get the sale don't self-analyze. They don't look at feedback to then improve on the next point. He's lucky he actually met you during the time so you could give him feedback. But I can bet you if he wasn't there, he would have never said, oh, maybe I talked too much. Maybe I said this wrong. He had the cue to ask me a question and I didn't let him, etc., etc.
Yes, and at least he asked for feedback, right? That's something that not everybody does. And actually, later in the night, I saw him sitting again next to the investor, but the guy was just ignoring him. So it was too late. But at
Yeah,
least he tried.
fair enough. And then just to circle back, you mentioned don't ask why question. That's really interesting because most salespeople like dig deep, ask why. I've been in sales companies where the script literally says the main point question, like, what's your biggest challenge? And it's like, why? To remind the salesperson to ask and dig deeper, which is good to an extent. I like your point of saying people associated with pain as a childhood, like you're being in trouble. What alternative questions would you use? Is it like, tell me more about that? What would you use?
You take the alternative questions from what they're telling you. If, for example, if they tell you that, I don't know, that, their last cold emails campaigns have been failing and they feel very frustrated about it and they need to generate leads urgently. And you don't ask them why they failed. You ask them, what do you think is making them fail? You just reframe that to a what question. You reframe that to a how question. Like, how did the people involved make it fail, if anything? How did they play a role in it? How could, what do you think would make them successful? What have you tried to not make? Then you go into traditional script questions that are what, how. You try to reframe it in a way that, of course, at some point you can ask why. You don't
Yeah,
have to avoid it like the plague. But the issue is too much why starts feeling accusatory. And also, if you're dealing with people who sit in front of salespeople a lot, they will also sense the script. And now
yeah,
when they sense the script, they start also smelling the commission breath and they create the sales resistance. And the issue with sales resistance is that it's a barrier for trust, for connection. And you need them to trust you because in the end, the deal always gets closed on trust.
yeah. I completely agree. And I think potentially what could be done as well is if you are to ask a why question, throw in a pattern interrupt before that with your tonality or something like that. So what I typically do is I go, huh, and I just look away. Give it a second pause, build attention, and then I'll ask a why question. And then they're like, oh, what's this guy thinking about? But then it diffuses the why a bit.
I will copy that. I like that. Huh. Just a pause. I like that. Because
Look somewhere, pretend you have a thought. You already know the next question, but it makes it feel like there's no script there.
it gets them curious, right? Because, okay, what is he thinking about? And then the why comes as less heavy.
Yeah.
Also, mm, maybe the tonality in how you ask the why matters too. That's something I would love to have Jeremy Miner by my side and tell me if yes or no. But yes, it's definitely a way. Like a pattern interrupt is always also
Yeah.
a good approach because again you interrupt the process of them feeling pressure or them feeling like, oh my god, I'm in a sales call. It needs to flow like a conversation. You know, I think it's Chris Voss who defines negotiation as a communication with results. And that's what it is. A sales call is communication with results. You
Yeah.
want an outcome and you guide the prospect there through questions. Now, there is a chance you cannot help them. And then we run into the whole ethics of sales thing that You don't sell things that they don't need or that you cannot deliver on, but you want to guide them anyway to one outcome that is a yes or a no.
100%. I think getting Jeremy Mine on the call would be good, but I do agree it's the way you ask the why question because most salespeople when they start off they have the script and they just knock off the questions like they want. And an experienced salesperson can then come in and they shadow them and they ask the exact same question, but get a completely different response out of the prospect. So there's definitely something that plays around that aspect.
Because the tone is not only the tone. If you're in a video call or in one-to-one, in a one-to-one live call in person, it's your body language. It's how your hands move, it's your intonation, it's where you're leaning. It's a lot of subtle things that come from your confidence as a salesperson. And part of it again is the tone, because if I'm speaking like this on the sales call and ask you, well, why did that go wrong? You're gonna be bored. You're gonna okay, he's reading, and you don't want that. You don't want somebody to think, oh my god, he's reading from a script.
Yeah.
That feels gross. I had actually a friend of mine saw a post of me that I wrote, and she messaged me on WhatsApp, and she was like, okay, you know, I actually dealt with this yesterday because I wanted to buy something from this company, and I jumped on the sales call just to ask a couple things, and the sales rep just kept walking me through the script, and I kept telling them, but I want to buy now, and the rep didn't let her buy. The rep wanted to fill out the script to
Yeah.
the point that after 15 minutes she went, you know what, I'm not interested. She was ready to buy, man, and she didn't buy because the guy sold himself out of the transaction because he was trying to stick to it instead of being focused on, okay, she says she wants to buy, just sell it to her.
Yeah. I've seen that too many times to count on one hand. People try and stick to the script instead of just closing the deal, which is what their job is. And
Yes,
then,
that's, i I posted something about how we never we never we never rise to the level of our aspirations. We always fall to the level of our training, and the script is just a comfort zone sometimes. And if you rely too much on that, you will fall back on, okay, I need to go through this from beginning to end, and instead of thinking I need to close the deal, if it happens in minute 1 or minute 15 or minute 50, it doesn't happen as long as it closes. But if you have the trust, you have the commitment, and they want to pay, don't have a script. Just close them.
100%, I think people need to be a bit more agile with how they're moving in regards to their sales calls. And you mentioned at the start, frame is very important. And the reason I'm asking this is many sales rep falls into this trap of they have their prospect, they go on to the call and they say, okay, tell me what you have, what's the price? Don't waste my time. How would you then reframe and regain the positioning of the call so you're the authority leader?
Oh, that's tough, right? I haven't been in much of those, to be honest. But something I would do there is, in my case at least, I sell a service, right? And it's very tailored. So it'll be, how am I supposed to tell you the price if I don't know if I can help you to begin with?
Yeah,
That will disarm you because, first of all, by asking you a how question, I'm putting you again in the mental frame of helping me understand. If I ask that to you with candor, you have no reason to be a jerk to me and insist that I need to name the price as soon as we hop on the call. And now you start explaining to me. So that's one solution. How am I supposed to tell you the price of something that I don't know you need?
yeah,
Drop some silence in there. You could try mirroring them. You want to know the price? And if they are there just shopping around and they respond to the mirror with the same aggressive or the same confrontational, that's the word, the same confrontational tone, and they repeat their ask, probably they just want to shop around and they are just comparing options and they are not really interested in buying. Or you could label them. They ask you the price in that tone, and you could go, it seems like price is a really important matter to you.
Yeah,
Now that's a hard label, but it would get them talking. It would get them, oh no, I just, I have little time and I'll be under pressure the whole day because of this and that. And I just wanted to see if we can do this quickly. And then maybe that's an opportunity for us to say, then why don't this have this call another day when you're in a better frame of mind and you book it right there? Or again, use one of the other tricks to keep the conversation going. That's how I would handle it.
I like that. I like that. I usually use a metaphor of saying that's like asking the mechanic what's wrong with your car without opening the hood and then quoting your price. And if anyone does do that with you, run another direction. And then you have the ethical high ground and they just can't ask you that question anymore.
I love it. I have the same. I didn't think about using that type of framing when somebody comes aggressively at you with the price. I usually do that with a different metaphor. When
Yeah.
somebody asks me, "How can you help me?" Then I would go, it's like asking the doctor to give you medicine without you telling them what's wrong. They will be just selling you a drug.
I
It's
think that
not
there's a
ethical.
metaphors that you can use for that, and they're used for multiple situations. Like I'm sure you've had people where they're saying, "Okay, you've asked me all these questions, get to the point now," and you
Yes.
use these overcounts to actually be like, "Listen, this is how we actually have to go about the situation to get to that overcome." And I think a lot of salespeople are scared of walking away from the table. Be like, "Listen, this is my process. This is how I can take you from A to B. If you don't like it, find someone else." I think a lot of people then sit back and respect you and be like, okay, I'll follow your process.
Yes. Sometimes I will say this. Sometimes prospects want to test you out.
Yeah.
There will be assertive negotiators that they want to know if you just can handle them. And then once you set the frame, they will just respect that and follow the instructions. And and yes, you need to do that. It is your process. It's like when somebody gives you a tough time on price, like why does it cost that much? That's the price. You don't go to the grocery store asking the cashier why the meat costs that much. Why are you asking that about my service? It's
Yeah.
just some people will just test your boundaries and see how far they can go. Some people will just shop around, but having these metaphors is a great way to reframe that. I'll be using that too. Didn't
Yeah.
didn't even think of connecting that to that kind of situation. That's pretty genius.
Yeah. I mean, that's what the podcast is about, sharing ideas and growing together. And then what's your last final thoughts or piece of advice for salespeople, business owners implementing these strategies to grow their business?
Something I'll say because I've been having a lot of conversations about sales in the last weeks. I keep hearing, especially from other sales trainers, that the biggest mistake people make when selling is talking too much. That it sounds so basic when we say this, but it keeps coming back to me that maybe way too many salespeople still talk too much. So there is no way you will get better at sales, or at least at applying this kind of sales methodology that you use and I use. That there's no way you apply that if you give in to the instinct of talking. So you have to own up that you're talking because it's a degree of insecurity. It's your negotiation style. It's how you feel in control. But you need to accept that you're there to be like a doctor diagnosing a patient. That's sales. So if you don't do that, if you just talk, yes, by a virtue of numbers, you will close people. You could just close so many more of them if you listen to them, because maybe you are selling them something, but when they tell you their pain points, you can upsell them into something that's perhaps more expensive. Maybe sometimes they will tell you their pain points and you have nothing to help them with, but you have somebody you can recommend and you can honorably and honestly say, hey, we are not the people, the company for you, the person for you. Go to this guy. And maybe down the line, you being honest, turn that prospect into somebody that brings you a lead in the future. So, tips for salespeople: first of all, listen. Second of all, if you're going to apply some of these techniques, labeling, mirroring, you need to start one by one. Meaning, give it a couple of weeks, focus on mirroring. Don't do it only in sales calls. Have a podcast and Mirror them. Have a conversation with your wife and mirror her. If you want to apply a label, go to Starbucks, get a coffee, and look at the kid at the counter and say, "Tough day," or "Looks like you're having a great day." Get them talking. Learn how to read people. I see business and sales as such a human thing.
Yeah,
Knowing people would just be a massive advantage, and you probably agree with that.
100%. I think mirroring, asking these questions, you can do it in everyday life. I know I use it with my girlfriend. I use it with my family. When I want to get something, I use my sales negotiation tactics to get my way. So I completely agree with you. Go to a coffee shop, ask questions, test it on people you don't care about.
Yes, it's easier when, the beautiful thing about going to a coffee shop and trying to guess somebody's state of mind is that those are people that never get talked to the whole day. Like clients in sociology, there is a word for people that do those jobs in sociology that is called like non-person. It's not offensive, it's not a judgment, it's just how our brains perceive them because they appear in our lives for a couple seconds at a time. They are a non-person because we don't communicate to them. Now, if you try to gauge their emotional state, you are making them feel seen. Maybe you make a difference in their day and you never know. So it's actually fun to do. It's a good thing to do. And you can improve your sales skills while you are just walking around and living your life. And, you know, as you mentioned, you use it in your family, you use it with your girlfriend. Chris Voss said it best. Negotiation is the art of letting other people have your way.
I completely agree. And just to round it off, 'cause I remember you asked me this question on my one and you stumped me. What's one controversial opinion you have?
About sales or in general.
General.
One controversial opinion I have. How much trouble can I get in here? Um, I think given given my background, I'm originally from Venezuela. Just to give you some context on how I came to this conclusion, I think I'm gonna get political. I think socialism and communism are a plague that we should regard with the same toughness and hard feelings we regard Nazism. Any ism that's too extreme should be rejected by society. If it's on the left, if it's on the right, I don't care. It's all a circle, right? Every time you take something from the extreme to an extreme, it becomes exactly the thing it's opposing. So you need to keep balance in everything, and that's my controversial opinion. Every time I hear people talking about socialism, I realize you don't know what you're talking about because if you ask anybody from Cuba, from Eastern Europe, from Venezuela, if they would live under that again, they would they would give their lives to avoid that for their children if they could.
Mm. Well, we'll end it on that nice political view at the very end. Perfect. Well, it's a pleasure having you as a guest today, Sebastian. I'm sure we'll do a part two on another sales topic. But nice having you on today's episode of Growthcast.
I had a blast. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sebastian. Have a good rest of the time.
You too.